Welcome to FNF Victory Road Draft League Season 2 Team Analysis. In this series, I will be analyzing the teams that participated in the FNF Victory Road Draft League Season 2, and this is either in interview format via call or DM, but of course, today we have a different one because it's my own team, so it's kind of an interview with myself, I guess. So this is the team Sun and Friendly, led by Noel, which is me. So this is going to be the last team analysis video, and it's going to be going over my battles, both in the regular season and the playoffs. I will be going a little bit more in depth in this one than I do in the other ones, just because I have all the data, like the teams, for example, on Showdown that I built with, and all that. So I'll be showcasing that as well as an in-depth look into each individual Pokemon too, so I hope you enjoy it. Before we begin the battle record analysis, I want to talk about why I chose this theme. So I actually conceptualized Sun and Friendly back during Season 1, Week 3, I believe, or Week 4. I was really curious. I think I was watching Tiller play with Hyper Offense, and I was kind of curious as to how that playstyle would be in a draft league. And so I thought, let me try a more offensive team. And my favorite weather in Pokemon is Sun, just because it's kind of underrated, but it's still really fun, and it makes grass types do really well. Chlorophyll sweepers, that is. And grass is a type that I really like, so I decided to build my team around Sun. And I was originally planning to go with both Torkoal and Ninetales, but I decided to go with Torkoal because it's really adorable and it's more of my kind of Pokemon than Ninetales is. So I went with Torkoal, and so I built a Sun team. And I was kind of stuck on the name. At first I was going to name it Solarian, and then I was thinking Solar Garden, or Garden of the Sun. And then finally I went with Sun and Friendly because it was a nice little pun on the server's name, which is Fun and Friendly. And I made this logo because I really wanted to show Torkoal being happy. So that was my reasoning behind the logo. It took me more time than I'd like to admit. So that's kind of the background behind Sun and Friendly. And this is my team picture. This shows all the Pokemon on Sun and Friendly pre and post exchanges. And my team concept was kind of like, I like to have lore with my Pokemon teams. So the lore behind this team was that there's kind of like a community garden that a lot of different Pokemon joined in to partake in. And it was like kind of a public project where all these different Pokemon could gather and kind of serve the public interest and build something nice together and support each other. And a lot of these Pokemon are like useful in certain areas in taking care of the garden. For example, Torkoal summons the sun, Venusaur helps with growing things, Ranger, the shift tree, is like keeping guard over the garden to make sure no one tampers with it, Rotom fan provides a nice breeze to everybody, Excadrill burrows so like the soil becomes replenished and things like that. So yeah, I had fun with this team and I grew attached to a lot of these Pokemon. I overall enjoyed using this team, even though I kind of had a slump period with it. But yeah, I'm glad I experimented with this team overall. So this is the little collage. I like it a lot. And we'll move into the team itself. This is the initial team. So I changed this concept a little bit. I did go with Sun. That was like the consistent thing. But there was a lot of Pokemon I was kind of switching off between. I knew that I wanted to have 2 Fire-type sweepers and 2 Chlorophyll sweepers to benefit from the Sun. So that's why I ended up taking Volcarona on the special side and Arcanine on the physical side, although it could do both. And then I took Venusaur on the special side, Shiftry on the physical side, but both of them can run mixed sets or even venture into special and physical. So those were kind of the most important ones for me. And then I wanted Klefki and Mega Bayonet with Prankster to sort of support my Pokemon, stop any runaway sweepers with Destiny Bond, for example, on Bayonet, set up hazards with Klefki because that's really important for Shift Tree, for example, when it tries to sweep. And then the rest of the Pokemon, Swampert was to set up Stealth Rocks. Mesprit was kind of like a catch-all. It was really valuable and really cheap because it was tier 4. Machamp was kind of a catch-all as well, pretty bulky and can take down problematic Pokemon. Drampaw was to sweep in Trick Room, because I also wanted a Trick Room component, Machamp as well, and then Rotom Fan as a defogger. And I just wanted to try out Rotom Fan just because everybody thinks it's a meme, but I think Rotom Fan is actually sleeper good. So yeah, I had a lot of fun drafting this team. It was like a really low tier team because I just love tier 4 Pokemon, and low tier Pokemon, I like really showing that they're not garbage. Even though they're not as like good as tier 1 Pokemon, they could still do really well if you support them and use them correctly. So that's something I also wanted to do. I had like a ridiculous amount of points after this. I think I had like 350 points left with my team. So I knew that later down the line, if I wanted to make exchanges, I could, and I did end up utilizing it. But yeah, finally Volcarona got Z Attack because I thought it would be really useful for Shattered Psyche and Hurricane, and also Solar Beam. And then Arcanine got Z Any because I wanted to try using Z Howl at one point so I could get like a Swords Dance off. And I also wanted to use Z Dig, which I thought that nobody would expect, but there was never really a circumstance in which I thought Z Dig would be better than just running close combat with like a Life Orb or something else. So I never ended up using that, but I am glad I gave Arcanine the Z privilege because it has a lot of really good moves that can act as nice wall-breaking moves with the Z move. So this was my initial team, and I felt pretty good about it at first. I knew it was kind of clowny, and really quickly I realized that I was very vulnerable to rocks. But I wanted to see what I could do with this team before I made any exchanges. So we're going to go into the regular season first and take a look at the battle record. So in the regular season, I ended up getting rank number 1, and I went 8-2 with a differential of 26. I was really pleased with how I did. I think I did pretty well. I did have a few hiccups here and there, and I think in some of those battles that I hiccuped, I could have done better. But overall, I think I did well, especially for the team that I had drafted. And I definitely noticed it was a really tough time. All the coaches pretty much just improved a lot from the last season, and they became really formidable. And a lot of the teams were scary too because there was a lot of hyper offense, so I knew that it was kind of like a season of kill or be killed, basically. So yeah, running hyper offense myself, it was kind of like a lot of the battles were really high stakes. In terms of the opponent that I was fearful of the most, it really depended on pre and post exchanges. Pre-exchanges, I was pretty scared of Quasimodo's team and Colin's team because I felt like those were my worst matchups. Colin then made some exchanges which made the matchup a little bit more in my favor. So at that point, it was really Quasimodo's team that was the scariest for me. And post-exchanges, I'd say that Quasimodo's team was still the scariest to me overall. Noobscript's team was kind of scary to me, and Startoad's as well. But I think Quasimodo was like the number 1 most scary. Especially because he had so many options to just bulldoze through my team if I wasn't careful. So, yeah, and I did end up facing him. The most difficult challenge for me I think it was the two matches I lost, honestly, Drizzle Boy and Quasimodo, for different reasons. In the match versus Drizzle Boy, I kind of just, like, I don't know, my mindset just wasn't there, and I hadn't prepped as well as I could have, and versus Quasimodo was difficult because he just went so out of left field that I just was like, what? And it kind of threw me for a loop. So I'd say those were the most difficult. Ember, also, Rio Grande Rapidash, probably up there with the most difficult as well in the regular season. So we'll take a look at all of these battles, and we'll start with my week 1 battle, which was versus the Star Conquerors, which is Benji's team. So when I first saw this team, honestly, this was the team I was most confident to face, because he didn't have an auto rain setter, which I think he realized after this battle and the next battle that he needed one. But because he didn't have an auto rain setter, Shiftry was just amazing in this matchup, because I could take down almost all of his Pokemon after a boost. The things that I was most worried about really were Shuckle putting up hazards and Garbodor with hazards in bulk. And Steelix having Sturdy, and then Illumise having Prankster. Those were like the 4 things that could have rained on my parade. But I carried Defog for the hazards. I'll actually show you which team I ended up using. So to face those things, I carried Defog for the hazards on Rotom and also Rapid Spin on Torkoal. I ended up using Swampert to set up Stealth Rock, and I had Torkoal with Stealth Rock just in case. For Steelix and Sturdy, I wanted to set up those hazards so that Steelix wouldn't be able to survive anything. And then for Illumise, I knew that as long as I kept Torkoal alive, using Prankster Rain Dance wasn't going to be that much of an issue, because if Shiftry was sweeping, it could set up Rain to disrupt, but it would die if it did that, and if it attacked, Shiftry would have gone first and Sun would have stayed up. So Illumise actually wasn't that much of a problem for me. And then just in case Shiftry got damaged, I had Healing Wish on Mesprit so Shiftry could restore its HP. So overall, this team was kind of built around Shiftry. And also Mesprit for handling Garbodor as well. So this team was kind of built around Shiftry because I knew that Shiftry was just going to do a really good job. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. Shiftry managed to net all the kills in this game. It had 2 different instances where it set up. The second time aided by Mesprit, and then Torkoal's Yawn actually really helped in Shiftry setting up as well Rotom with Defog and Will-O-Wisp too. So this battle kind of went exactly as I planned, with Shiftry doing really well, and I felt pretty confident, and this was the start of Shiftry going on the MVP rankings, and I thought, how cool would it be if a Tier 5 won the MVP race? So this was kind of the start of me wanting Shiftry to win the MVP race, so yeah. So that was a pretty good battle. Next week was week 2, and this was versus Edgar's team, the Moon Drinkers. I was really excited to face Edgar's team, not only because Edgar is a really good battler, and excuse me, and we practiced last week, but also because we both had Sun cores, and so running Sun was kind of risky for me because I could possibly be helping his team as well. The Pokemon that I was most scared of was Garchomp, because it was really hard for me to take down, and I was wondering if he was going to hold a Yache Berry so it could survive a Hidden Power Ice from Shiftry and then just take me down. So I felt like I had really limited options versus Garchomp. I really wanted to deal with it. And then he had so many options for spikes and rocks, setting them up and maintaining them, because I relied a lot on Defog, and he had Tentacruel and Registeel with Clear Body, and also Braviary and Bisharp with Defiant, so using Defog was super risky because it either just wouldn't work on a clear Bodymon or it would give an attack boost to something I really didn't want to give an attack boost to. So he definitely had good hazard control with his team when I was team building, and I was really nervous about facing that because I knew I had to set up hazards and keep hazards off my side to preserve my sash. So yeah, that was a tough team to plan for, but this is the team I came up with. Rotom Fan was basically built to deal with Garchomp. I had Will-O-Wisp on it, and then Hidden Power Ice, and also Defog to get rid of the rocks that it sets up. Torkoal, of course, to set Sun and to yawn something so that I could have a opportunity to set up with Shiftry. I also wanted to have rocks on Torkoal and to be able to Earthquake with Torkoal. Machamp was to face Nihilego. It was really bulky, especially with an Assault Vest. Also Tentacruel. And then I really wanted Shiftry to do most of the work because Low Kick was really good versus his team in taking out Houndoom, Bisharp, and Registeel. And Sucker Punch was for Excelgor because with the Scarf it outsped me in Sun. And then Arcanine and Venusaur were kind of just there to, like, as emergency backup in case Shiftry went down. So that's pretty much the approach I took to building this team. And in the match, it was a pretty good match. It had some scary moments. In the beginning, I made some pretty good reads, I think, with Defog. And I was able to burn Garchomp, which was really useful for me, do some damage with Hidden Power Ice, remove the rocks that it set up, and switch in Machamp to Tentacruel when it attempted to block my Defog, and also when Bisharp came in. So I think I did really well with hazard controls in the beginning with Rotom Fan. Rotom Fan was such a valuable asset for me in this fight. And once I had Garchomp in check, I knew that Shiftry was going to be able to sweep soon. I set up Sun with Mega Houndoom, which I don't know why I did that, because it just got super powerful and just murdered Torkoal. But I got it to fall asleep, which was the perfect segue for Shiftry to set up. So once I set up, I was on a roll, but Excelgor came in and yawned me. I Sucker Punched so I could outspeed it. It yawned me, and that was such a problem because then Bisharp came in, and that was pretty scary. Because Bisharp started boosting with Swords Dance. And I don't know what I would have done. I guess I could have brought in Venusaur and went for a Sleep Powder. Well, no, actually I couldn't have because Mega Houndoom was asleep, so Venusaur couldn't set anything to sleep. So I actually don't know what I have done if that would have happened. Maybe brought in Rotom Fan to go for the Will-O-Wisp, but if Bisharp outsped, yeah, it would have been bad. So yeah, that was I kind of won this one by the skin of my teeth. Not with the differential shows, but yeah, Shiftry woke up just at the right time to be able to take out Bisharp and then sweep pretty much the rest of the team. And yeah, overall it was really fun. I really liked that battle, and Edgar definitely proved to be a really tough opponent. So the next week was versus Morgana's team, Northern Necrozmas. And I was I just faced Garchomp. I have to face Mega Garchomp now. Are you kidding me? But I was initially scared, but then I realized that some of the options that I had for Garchomp I couldn't do because of its really good speed. But Mega Garchomp has 10 less speed, and that was just enough for Arcanine to be able to Devastating Drake it, which is the Z Outrage. And that worked out in my favor because it was a high chance to one-hit KO, and if I just got a little damage on it, I would have been able to do it. So I banked on that because I hadn't used the Z move with Arcanine yet. And I wanted to use Shiftry again, but I felt like Venusaur would fare better in this matchup because Zeraora was really scary. Zeraora could outspeed Shiftry with a Scarf and close combat it. And I didn't think he would run Hidden Power Fire on Zeraora. I thought he was expecting more Shiftry, so I packed Venusaur because Venusaur could kind of wall Zera and go for a growth and then sweep. So Venusaur was kind of the main sweeper that I wanted to bring. And yeah, so my main plan was to get hazards up, preserve Torkoal till Tyranitar died because he did have sand, and then sweep with Venusaur after Arcanine helped clear the path. And that's pretty much what happened. Volcarona was kind of just there as a backup pick, like, just in case everything went south, Volcarona could come in with a Focus Sash, Quiver Dance, and then go to town. But overall, the Pokemon that I used did really well. And Klefki was one of those Pokemon that did really, really well because it came in on Chomp with a balloon. It harmed Tyranitar and set up spikes. And so that really helped me. And then Arcanine was able to Z Outrage. And I was really happy with that because it took down Mega Garchomp, which was a big threat. And I was really happy Mantine didn't show up because then no Defog, so my hazards were intact. And Venusaur was able to sweep in the sun after boosting against Zeraora. And yeah, after the battle I realized that Sand actually wasn't too scary for my team because Tyranitar didn't really want to come in on any of my Sun Sweepers to begin with. Like, it didn't want to come in on Venusaur while Sun was up because then I could just Giga Drain it and it would have taken big damage from that. So it wasn't as much as a problem as I thought it would be, especially since I managed to take down Tyranitar pretty early. So week number 4 was versus patch 3.0 Ivysaurs. This is Noob Scrub's team. And at this point, I kind of was getting a little sick of running Sun and Hyper Offense. So this was actually a godsend to me because I saw this team and I thought, okay, this is finally not a Hyper Offense team, so I could not have to run Hyper Offense myself. Because the best way to face Hyper Offense, at least to me, is to run your own Hyper Offense. But since this was more of a Stally team, I got to run more of my own Stally team, and that was really fun. So I had a lot of fun team building in this one, and this is the only time I didn't use Sun in the regular season, although I still brought Torkoal because it was generally pretty good in this matchup. So yeah, I most feared Stoutland and Shell Smash Turtonator because Shell Smash Turtonator could have really run away with this, and it had a generally good typing versus my team, so I definitely thought he was going to bring it. A lot of the Pokemon that I brought just didn't want to face Turtonator. And then on the defensive side, Mega Venusaur was really scary for me because I didn't really have a lot of good options for it. I don't really have any strong flying types. Rotom Fan, Air Slash just doesn't hit hard. And in terms of psychic types, all I had was Mesprit, so I brought Mesprit along. But yeah, for this, I wanted to make a stall-based team built around Venusaur. And it worked out pretty well. I wanted to use Venusaur because he likes Venusaur a lot, so I thought it would be pretty epic to have like a Venusaur versus Mega Venusaur based battle. And that's kind of what happened. So Venusaur was pretty much meant to Leech Seed a lot of stuff, Sleep Powder things, and then Roar when hazards were up to do damage and to disrupt any like Wish Passing. Torkoal was mostly to set up hazards, namely rocks, and spin away his hazards. Rotom Fan was just to act as an annoyer and take on Quagsire and Celesteela. Bayonet was really good at taking on Mega Venusaur. Pain Split would do a lot, especially with no HP investment. And Cotton Guard was to have an emergency versus Stoutland. And then Knockoff was to remove any items that would be troublesome, like leftovers. Taunt, really good versus Blissey and just in general versus Mega Venusaur to prevent it from synthesizing. And then Willpower the Machamp, I kind of just had fun with. I wanted to go for Encore so I could Encore like Protect or something like that, and I gave it Guts so that it could benefit from Toxic from Blissey and Bulk Up to bulk up whenever his Pokemon were protecting, so I'd hit harder next turn. And then Promise the Mesprit was just to trick a Choice Scarf to disrupt things, and also to just disrupt Mega Venusaur with Psychic and take it down just in case I couldn't take it down. So this was a really fun team to build, and I liked it because I finally got to approach a battle differently. And yeah, it went really well for me. The really useful Pokemon to me, actually all of the Pokemon in this battle were pretty much useful. Mega Bayonet was really good to switch into Venusaur, and I knew that he would switch in Mandibuzz often to Bayonet, so I was able to get some good reads switching in Rotom Fan. And Rotom Fan was really threatening to the flying types and burning Hippowdon. Machamp was a fun novelty set to try and did do decent damage, although Mega Venusaur was able to wall it, and it kept coming in from Roar on Hippowdon. But yeah, overall I was able to solve with Venusaur. Roar saved me from his block tactic. He wanted to use block versus me because I used block versus him in Season 1. And Mega Bayonet couldn't be blocked, and then Roar was really good at preventing block from being relevant. And Sleeping Turtonator really helped me a lot because I was able to chip it down and eventually take it out before it could even go for a Shell Smash. So honestly, this battle was the most fun for me of the regular season. I just liked how complex it was, how it took longer than just like 20 turns, and how it was really interesting. I thought there was a lot of complexities to this battle, and we got to play stall, which was fun because there was just too much hyper offense going on, and it was a breath of fresh air because I was getting really burnt out from playing hyper offense. It was getting kind of boring to me. So yeah, this was my favorite battle of the regular season. So we're going to move on to Week 5, which was versus Sartoad's team, the Detroit Deinos. And just going to get a sip of water first. Okay, so Mamoswine and Heatran were huge problems for my team. The fact that Earthquake pretty much hit most of my team really hard was pretty tough to deal with in building around Heatran, and my grass types weren't super comfortable versus Heatran because Mamoswine because of the Ice Stab it got. And then Heatran, of course, can do really well versus grass types, so this was an extremely tough battle to plan around. Also, Crobat, really good against Sun Team. So, just in general, he had a lot of options to face my team, and I was really scared to do this one. So, I noticed that Machamp was pretty good versus his team, so I brought Machamp. And I gave it an Assault Vest, so that it would be pretty bulky. I thought that, in general, a lot of the problem Pokemon he had struggled to face a bulky fighting type, so Machamp was pretty useful for me. And then I think this was the first time I used Agility Arcanine, because after an Agility, it's really fast and it hits really hard. I wanted to use Shift Tree because I thought that Swords Dance Low Kick might be able to take out Heatran and Mamo. And I had a Focus Sash. And then Klefki was supposed to deal with Mamoswine by coming in on an Air Balloon, and once the Air Balloon popped, I could still set up hazards because I could Magnet Rise and then just whittle it down with Play Rough. So, yeah, that was kind of my concept. I gave both Breezy and Keyheart Hidden Power Ground because Magneton could be very problematic for some of my more passive Pokemon, like those two. So I wanted them to have an insurance policy against it. Um, so the battle went really well. Machamp did extremely well because nothing on his team really wanted to take a hit from Machamp, and because of Assault Vest and its general bulk, nothing could really take it out easily, so it just kept hitting things really hard and hitting switch-ins with good predictions. And Crobat was really scary. It was definitely the most problematic Pokemon in this battle. I couldn't really sweep with Shiftry because of Crobat. Also, there's an error in this graphic. Shiftry should have 1 kill, not 2. But yeah, at the end I did manage to get 1 kill on Shiftry because I weakened Crobat with Intimidate. I set up a Reflect. I did so many things to get Crobat weakened down, and then Shiftry was able to come in and get that final blow. But yeah, Machamp and Klefki really helped. Klefki went pretty much how I envisioned it versus Mamo, using Magnet Rise and Mamo going for the Earthquake, and it didn't work out. And then I believe I hit Heatran with a Hidden Power Ground too, which was really cool because it did really big damage. It didn't take it out, but it did pretty massive damage. So I liked this battle overall, and it definitely showcased that ground is a big problem for me, so Air Balloon can be quite the godsend. So on to week 6, I faced the Harlem Gloomtrotters, and like I had mentioned, I had kind of been getting really tired, not only because I had started working, I think, at this point, but I was just really tired of running the same thing all the time. Like, I loved my Noob Scrub battle, but aside from that, it was just like, okay, sun, hyper offense. It's just not my battle style, so honestly, this week, I did not plan as good as I should have. I normally like to do defensive calcs and offensive calcs, but I only did offensive calcs, and I just kind of brought my Sun Pokemon, and we're like, okay, let's just deal with his team. So that was kind of a big problem for me, because I should have spent more time and not just rushed into it. But yeah, so I didn't have a lot of solid plans for switch-ins, and that kind of screwed me over. But and there was some surprise Pokemon on his team. Like, I forgot about Raikou getting Weather Ball, which was a clown moment for me because, yeah, he used it really well. So there's a lot of things that he did really well. So I packed Z Outrage on Arcanine for Latios, but I don't know really why I did that, because Latios outspeeds it anyways. And Solar Beam for Rhydon. And then my plan was just to sweep with Venusaur or Shiftry, and then have Volcarona kind of punch holes in the team to allow sweeping later. And then Keyheart was to set up a Reflect so that I could take some hits from Mega Metacham. This was my first loss in the regular season, and honestly, Drizzle played really well. He brought some really interesting tactics like Weather Ball, Raikou, and Slurpuff did really well for him. Rhydon did really well. He set up hazards, which kind of my team was super weak to those because I had 3 fire types and then also a Sash Pokemon, so I should have controlled hazards better too. And then Silvally with Specs was really interesting because I was expecting him to go for like a type Silvally and then use Parting Shot. So when he went with Specs Surf, that hit really hard. There were a lot of moments that I could have turned things around, I think like Latios was looking scary and I sent out Shiftry, and I was just so desperate to kill it that I ended up using Knockoff instead of going for Growth. And I really should have gone for Growth, because if I did, I think I actually would have been able to sweep and win the battle. But I just went for Knockoff instead for some reason. I guess I thought Latios was going to try and kill Shiftry, but it didn't really have anything for it. And that happened twice. And then when Arcanine came out and Rhydon was coming, Sun wasn't up, but I still should have clicked Solar Beam anyways because I knew Rhydon was going to come in, and I didn't for some reason, and that really was bad for me too. So Rocks really hurt me and I wasn't able to remove them. So yeah, he played really well, and this was definitely my worst loss in the regular season. But I learned a lot from this battle. It definitely taught me the importance of planning thoroughly, and it allowed me to recognize fully that I just really don't like hyper offense, and so I needed to spice things up in my team. And sometimes you just need to use things that you don't like to realize what you do like. So that was definitely the case for this, and the changes I made would come as a result of this battle so that I could have more fun with my team. So in week 7, I made some exchanges. I actually wanted to make 5 exchanges, but I could only make 4 transactions, and the trade, and I didn't want to trade with anybody for anything, so I decided to ask Lion Hugs to trade for a transaction since they hadn't used many of their transactions. And I offered up Volcarona, to which I thought would benefit their team anyways because it's bulky and it kind of fulfills the role that Blacephalon does, but can actually recover, and I know that they like kind of bulkier Pokemon. So Lion Hugs gave me 1 transaction for Volcarona, and then once I did that, I was able to do the 5 exchanges I wanted to do. These exchanges, the purpose of these were to make my team a little bit less weak to rocks, and also to introduce a new weather so that I could have more fun and not just have to rely on Sun all the time. I could switch it up. So, first I picked up Excadrill, which would prove to be a really amazing Pokemon for me, and it did really well in Sand. This was my main Sand Sweeper. It could spin, and it's also resistant to rocks by a lot, so I don't have to worry about that. And just generally, it's such an amazing Pokemon, so I was really glad I picked this one up. Of course, for Excadrill, you need to supplement it with Sand. The only Sand Pokemon left was Gigalith, I think so. Hippowdon was taken, and Tyranitar was taken. Which at first I was like, aw, but then I realized I wanted to trade away Swampert anyways. It wasn't really doing much for me as a water type. I mostly got it as a ground type, but it just kind of was an awkward fit on my team. And I thought Gigalith could do its role in setting up rocks better. It hits harder, it sets up sand, it's bulkier, and just in general, I really like Gigalith a lot. I think it's kind of slept on as a sand setter because most people look at Tyranitar and Hippowdon. So I wanted to kind of like... Gigalith is kind of like the Torkoal of sand setters. So I wanted to use them both because I just love them both. So that's why I picked up Gigalith to accompany Excadrill. I also switched away Rotom Fan for Togedemaru. I did have Rapid Spin from Excadrill, so I didn't really need Defog from Rotom Fan. Togedemaru was also immune to Sandstorm and had Sturdy, so it was like an automatic sash. And it's a good pivot, and it has really nice stab. And it's another one of those Pokemon that's kind of like... People don't expect it to be good, but I actually do think it is pretty good in the right hands. And in the right circumstances, and it did really well for me, so... This was probably one of the trades I was really happy to do. It was really hard, too, because Rotom Fan had done really well for me, too, as a support Pokemon, but I knew that Togedemaru was going to be more useful for me overall. Then I exchanged Mega Bayonet for Mega Pidgeot. Using Mega Bayonet made me realize why Mega Bayonet is tier 3. It is a really fun Pokemon to use, but it's just really awkward to use as well. It's kind of a 1-for-1 Pokemon because its best thing is Destiny Bond Prankster, but it could also be kind of predictable in that sense. And Destiny Bond Will-O-Wisp. Its attack is really great, but its options to attack are abysmal. Shadow Claw is kind of a weak move, so it doesn't do as much as you think it would do, especially since it can't hold an item. And then Gunk Shot is so inaccurate, and then that's pretty much its attack options. I guess Knock Off too, but yeah, it just wasn't doing it for me. It was fun to use, and I really liked it. I like its design a lot, and I thought Pidgeot is immune to ground, it could pivot, it's fast, it's a special attacker, which complements Excadrill and Gigalith and Togedemaru, which are all attackers that I picked up. And it could use Heat Wave and Sun and not miss, so I just thought it made a lot of sense, and it was a really good Pokemon to have. Never used it, but but it was a cool Pokemon. And And then finally, the last Pokemon I exchanged was Drampa for Latias. Again, I wanted to have another Earthquake immunity, so I had Latias, Mesprit, and Mega Pidgeot all immune to Earthquake because of their flying typing. I never ended up using Drampa because I didn't use Trick Room that much in the beginning. Unfortunately, because I really did want to try using Drampa, but I thought Latias just had really nice utility because it had Healing Wish, which could come in clutch. It had Trick, it had Defog, it had a really wide move pool, and it could just do a lot of things. So I thought, let me use Latias because it could be a nice addition to my team, either on the offense or in support. So that's the reason I made my trades and my exchanges rather, and I think it really helped me pick up my motivation again. I was still kind of in a slump, but it made my team more interesting and fun for me to use, and it also made it a lot more viable. And team building against two Weathers and Trick Room can definitely be tough, so I think I had that upper hand against a lot of opponents too. So next I fought Rio Grande Rapidash, which is Ember, and this was my first battle after exchanges, but I thought that it would be kind of obvious that I was going to use Sand after exchanging for it, so I also wanted to stay true to the name of my team, so I kind of went with a primary Sun and secondary Sand team concept. I did not want to see Fortress. I was really relying on hazard stacking for this one, and Fortress was just going to be the bane of my existence. I thought so hard that he wasn't going to bring Fortress, because I was like, oh, I have a lot of Fire-type options, and I set up Sun. Like, of course he's not going to bring Fortress. But then he did, which sucked. But yeah, so this is the team that I went for. I built heavily around Shiftry. After a nasty plot with Spikes and Rocks up, it could obliterate pretty much everything on its team. But I needed to have Hazards up, and that proved harder than I thought it would be. But yeah, so I had Shiftry and Torkoal to provide some support with Yawn, and also hit kind of hard. Aria, the Latias, was just kind of to clean up or support if I needed it. And then my Sand Core of Gigalith and Excadrill was kind of just, if Sun didn't work out, I could sweep with Sand. A lot of the problem Pokemon for Sun were handled by Sand, like Dragalge, for example. And then Keyheart was supposed to set up as many spikes as it could, and also be a decent answer to Crocodile. So this battle was really tough, and the hardest part about it was just that Ember was in control so often. He removed my spikes multiple times, both with Rapid Spin from Fortress and Defog from Tornadus. He just was always walling my Pokemon. Fortress was just really a big problem for me. And then Dusclops became a really big problem for me. There was one moment where Crocodile came in and Shiftry had boosted, and I thought that I was free to go for a sweep. But Crocodile had a Focus Sash, and it was able to put a big dent in Shiftry, which was really bad for me because then I couldn't Focus Sash and I didn't have my Healing Wish Pokemon available to me anymore because I mispredicted a Earthquake by switching into Latias. So yeah, Dusclops did quite a number on me because my Pokemon were weakened by that point, and I kept trying to set up hazards, but Dusclops wasn't letting me. It had Taunt, it had Will-O-Wisp, it had Pain Split, it had Seismic Toss. It was such a good Dusclops set, and I couldn't break through it with Shiftry because I hadn't Nasty Plotted and Seismic Toss was doing big damage. I think I could have broken through Dusclops if I used Giga Drain on Shiftry first to restore enough HP to the point where Seismic Toss wouldn't kill me, and then also bring Dusclops down so that I could kill it with Dark Pulse. Because I used Dark Pulse and I almost killed it, but then I didn't. And then when Shiftry went down, I was kind of panicking, and it was all up to Gigalith and Excadrill. And then Gigalith also got burned from Dusclops, and Dusclops used Pain Split on it and restored its HP. So it was just like Dusclops was giving me a hell of a time. But I knew that I just needed to keep Excadrill intact and Gigalith intact enough to use Excadrill in Sand, because in Sand Excadrill could outspeed and take down everything. So yeah, he had a lot of good control, but using Gigalith and then switching in Excadrill to the predicted Seismic Toss, taking out Dusclops, taking out a few more Pokemon, and then setting up Sand one more time, that was really good for me. And then Excadrill was almost dead, so it actually died to Tornadus, which was good for me because then Excadrill came in safely and then managed to sweep the rest of the team. So this was a huge clutch moment by Excadrill, and it showed just how good the Sand Core could be. But yeah, kudos to Ember. It was a really exciting match, and it was like down to the wire. I was so it was so hype. So next we go on to week 8. This is versus Florida Flesh Ribbons, which is Lionhug's team. And this week I kind of realized I was still in a team building slump. I don't know what it was, but I had trouble coming up with a plan because honestly, Rain Dance Kingdra just obliterated my team. Like, it was really scary for me to face. Excuse me, drink some water. So, Rain Dance Kingdra was like the bane of my existence. It was such a huge nightmare to me. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Because once Kingdra sets up Rain, that's it. Like, it just Hydro Pumps me to hell and back. So, I pretty much built around trying to stop Kingdra. And Beware was also looking really scary to me because it's kind of bulky. Archeops, because it outspeeds a lot of things and it hits really hard with Head Smash. But really, Kingdra was like my biggest fear. And so I was thinking, I was like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And I realized, okay, I've been setting up hazards a lot with Klefki. And Dark types block Prankster. And I was thinking, hey, Mega Sableye is most likely going to come to this match because Lionhugs is going to want to block those hazards with Mega Sableye and Prankster. So I could take advantage of Mega Sableye and its passivity and its very typical moveset with Arcanine by putting Justified on Arcanine. So Justified was supposed to boost my attack by taking a knockoff from Mega Sableye, and then Will-O-Wisp, it's immune to Will-O-Wisp, and then I could Agility while the switch out happens, and then with Flare Blitz in close combat and Morning Sun, I could tear through the team while also restoring my HP when I needed it. So that's pretty much exactly what happened. I also had Latias for Kingdra. I thought if I could set up a Tailwind, I could outspeed it in the rain, but also if it uses Draco Meteor on me in the rain, I could survive it with a Haban Berry and then Draco Meteor back and take it down. Togedemaru was supposed to be a lead because it was a really good lead versus Metagross and Archeops and all the typical leads that Lionhugs use. With Air Balloon, those Pokemon can't really hit that hard, and I could Nuzzle and then U-turn out, and I had Magnet Rise just in case. And then Warmth was to set up Sun for Venusaur. And Excadrill was just kind of there to be there. Like, I don't know why I brought Excadrill to this one. I think it was to take advantage of Sylveon and use Swords Dance on it. I have no idea. But yeah, I don't know why I brought Excadrill. But anyways, the match went exactly as I had hoped it would go for. The justified Arcanine trick either was going to work really well or not work at all, and it worked really well. So I was really glad about that because it felt really cool. I was so scared of Rain Dance Kingdra, but by the time Arcanine had set up, it was so powerful that nothing could really set up a Rain Dance for the Kingdra, and I was able to come out victorious. Venusaur ended up taking the last kill because Arcanine took itself down with recoil damage. But yeah, it was a really fun match. So the next week is week 9. This is versus Nightwishiwashi, Fingered Witch's team. And I was really excited to face Fingered Witch because we didn't face each other last season. And we're really good friends, so yeah, this team was really tough for me to build around because I had decided that I really wanted to build a Shiftry based team because it felt like after my trades, or my exchanges rather, Shiftry wasn't doing as well as it did in the beginning, and I wanted Shiftry to kind of like return to its former glory. And the MVP race was also getting really tight. It was pretty much between Shiftry, Komo-o, Gengar, and Buzzwole at this point. So I really wanted Shiftry to like get a lot of kills in this match. So I built a team around Shiftry, which was kind of tough because there's a lot of Pokemon that could take on Shiftry, like Scolipede and Nidoking, Mega Altaria, Scizor, and Incineroar. So I was like, oh gosh, how am I going to make this work? But I was really determined. So I went for some wacky stuff because I knew that I was going to see some wacky stuff coming from Fingered Witch's team as well. And so I thought it would be fun if we both went for some novelty sets. So Yawn on Torkoal and Sleep Powder on Venusaur was just to create opportunities for Shiftry to be able to boost. Roar on Fire Pup and Mud Slap was just to disrupt a lot. And then Spikes and Light Screen and Thunder Wave were to disrupt some more. Trick to disrupt some more. Healing Wish for Shiftry. Like, all these Pokemon pretty much operated around Shiftry. And yeah, the reason I had a return on Shiftry instead of like a different move like Low Kick was because if I put Low Kick, I could handle Incineroar, but then Mega Altaria was a problem. If I put a move to handle Mega Altaria, I don't even know what I would have put for Mega Altaria, to be honest, then I couldn't deal with Incineroar. So I needed to have return just for like neutral, general hitting move. That combination was really troublesome for Ranger, the Shiftry, but ultimately the battle was a lot of back and forths. There was a lot of back and forths, and they were using Incineroar really well, bringing it in versus a lot of my Pokemon that it resisted and punching big holes in my team. And it scared Shiftry out a lot, especially with Intimidate, and Shiftry couldn't do much to it because it hadn't been damaged enough yet. So Incineroar was definitely the star Pokemon on their team. But once I had forced them to switch enough, set up hazards, set some Pokemon to sleep, and slowly just started picking at things, there was one final stand for Shiftry, a Swords Dance, and then Shiftry just ended up sweeping the rest of the Pokemon because they had been weakened already. And yeah, and then Shiftry took it. It was a really, really intense one though, and it was really fun. And it was interesting trying to create openings for Shiftry to sweep against a team that it couldn't sweep against without a lot of support. So, yeah, Mesprit did really well as a pivot, U-turning all the time. It was just U-turning all over the place, creating a bunch of advantage states for me. And yeah, this was one of the really fun matches for me as well. I really liked this one. And it was funny using Mudslap Arcanine, which did come in handy for me as a disruption tool. So then finally week 10 was versus Quasimodo's team, the Pitiful Punching Bags. and I was really nervous to face Quasimodo. I faced him in week 10 of season 1, and it was a funny coincidence that I would face him in week 10 of season 2. And there was a lot on the line for him. He was fighting to get into playoffs. He needed to win to get into playoffs. And he also really wanted the run back from season 1, week 10. So I knew that he was going to put up a good fight. And also his team was just generally really scary, and I thought it would be a hard matchup. So, yeah. Just gonna take a sip of water. So, I was pretty sure he was gonna bring Como-O, because Shiftry was leading in the MVP race by like 4, and Como-O wanted that slot. So I was like, he's definitely gonna bring Como-O. So I made a hard counter team to Como-O, but I did not expect the team he was going to bring. It was intense. But anyways, before we get into the battle itself, I basically made a Trick Room team revolving around my 2 weather setters, but the weather setters actually acting as the sweepers. So Trick Room was with Mesprit, and then Torkoal. My intention was to Eruption with Torkoal, because it just obliterated everything on his team, either 1 or 2 hit KOs. And then I also wanted to deal big damage with Everlast. I had Sand Force on Everlast instead of Sandstream. That was completely a mistake. I did not mean to do that. And then Arya was to trick Wobbuffet with the Choice Scarf so that Wobbuffet couldn't do much. Klefki to set up hazards, and then Thunderwave any runaway sweepers like Barbaracle and Como-O. And then Togedemaru. I brought Togedemaru because it has Sturdy, and Sturdy is a really useful ability for him, and his Pokemon are pretty hurt badly by Togedemaru's stab. And I could paralyze things and pivot, so yeah. I gave it Bright Powder, honestly, because I didn't know what else to give it. I was just like, I don't really have any item I want to give it. So I just gave it Bright Powder, because I didn't want to choice it. I didn't want to damage it with Life Orb. Expert Belt, I was like, eh. So I was just like, oh, whatever, Bright Powder might come in clutch. Who knows? So yeah, this was my Como-O counter team, because I just wanted Shiftry to get in first at this point. So yeah, I did not expect him to have any hazards because he traded away Gligar. And so what happened was he led with Jigglypuff, and he set up Stealth Rock and used Sing on Gigalith. And that threw me for a loop. I was like, wait, what? I did not expect Jigglypuff, and because he was fighting to get into playoffs, so I was like, he's not going to bring Jigglypuff. Not only did he bring Jigglypuff, but he brought Hitmonchan, and I didn't expect Rocks, especially not from Jigglypuff, because I just forgot I got it. So that threw me for a big loop and ruined a lot of my plans, because Torkoal couldn't really hit hard with Eruption after Stealth Rock. And yeah, it was just really tough for me. So I set up with Mesprit, Trick Room. I took down Como-O early, which was like my biggest goal in this match, so I was pretty happy with that. But then Como-O actually damaged Mesprit because I missed a Zen Headbutt, which kind of screwed me in the long run, because if I hadn't gotten hit, I would have been able to survive Hitmonchan. But yeah, it was a really intense match. I managed to scarf Wobbuffet like I planned. Barbaracle went on a sweeping spree, but then I managed to stop it with Togedemaru after it got Thunder Waved by Klefki. Hitmonchan's Drain Punch missed Togedemaru because of the Bright Powder, and then I took it out. And I almost won the whole thing because Mega Alakazam was the last Pokemon standing, and it used Focus Blast and missed. And then I Zing-Zapped it, and then it used Focus Blast again. Right after Trick Room ran out, hit me, despite the fact that I was holding Bright Powder and Focus Blast doesn't hit often, and then took me down. It was so hype, and honestly, I'm really glad that Quasimodo was able to beat my Bright Powder Togedemaru, because kind of cringe. But yeah, Hitmonchan was really unexpected too, because it was holding an Assault Vest, and so Torkoal, I think, would have taken it down had it not been holding an Assault Vest, but it was. And yeah, I didn't bring Shiftry or Excadrill because Mega Alakazam tracing one of the sweeping abilities in Weather would have been absolutely bonkers, and I didn't want to deal with that. So Shiftry probably would have helped though, because it gets Sucker Punch and can use Leaf Blade on Barbaracle. But overall, I'm happy with this game. It was really funny, and it'll definitely go down in Victory Road history. So those were my matches, and let's take a look at the Pokemon statistics. Overall, my best Pokemon was Shiftry at a plus 15 differential. It ended up winning the MVP race, which I was really happy with, because I really wanted a tier 5 to win the MVP race, and Shiftry just did me really well. Then Arcanine, Machamp, Excadrill, Togedemaru, Venusaur, and Mesprit all in the positive. And then Gigalith, Latias, and Torkoal, the setters and the support mons, in the negative. On this particular team, my favorite Pokemon to use in the regular season was definitely Shiftry. It just felt so cool to sweep with Shiftry. I just really liked doing that. Arcanine was another really big favorite of mine, because after an agility, it is so scary. And I think Togedemaru also was fun to use. Venusaur as well. And then my least favorite Pokemon to use was actually Swampert and Volcarona on this particular team. Just because I felt Volcarona I kind of used Volcarona to use it, and not because it actually fit on my team. And then Swampert, yeah, it didn't fit on my team at all, and it was just really awkward. Like, it doesn't have any recovery, it wasn't good in Sun. I don't know why I got it, but yeah. So, before we look at each Pokemon individually, this is the extended score. So, if you look at the K% per battle, that was the percent that it was likely that a Pokemon would get a kill per battle. So Shiftry, for example, had 283%. That means it was likely to get pretty much 2.8 kills per battle, almost 3 kills per battle. Togedemaru and Excadrill likely to get 2 kills per battle. And then some Pokemon got 0%, which meant they didn't get any kills per battle. And then death percent per battle was the likeliness of a Pokemon dying in a battle. So, for example, bringing Venusaur, it was 17% likely that it would die, versus something like Gigalith, where it was 100% likely that it would die in the regular season. And then finally, the differential per battle is just how useful a Pokemon was per battle. And again, Shiftry was my most useful at plus 2.5 per battle. That's like, every time I brought Shiftry, I added basically 2.5 to my score. My least useful was definitely Gigalith at -1 per battle, and Swampert. And then Excadrill and Togedemaru were really useful for me as well, both coming in at 2 and 1.5 respectively. So I thought it was an interesting metric to see. I did end up using Torkoal 100% of the time, and I did not end up using Mega Pidgeot or Drampa. Unlike last season, I did use every one of my Pokemon last season. This season, I did not. But yeah, Torkoal was my baby, even though it didn't have the best record. Setting up Sun was all it really needed to do. So let's get into the Pokemon analysis. We'll start from the lowest scoring Pokemon to the highest. The lowest scoring Pokemon was Volcarona, tied with Swampert. I didn't use it that much. One time I used it, I didn't need it. And then the other time I used it, it died. So it never got any kills. It never got to show. It kind of like fell from grace from last season. But I realized, I just took it because it was my MVP last season and I wanted to continue its legacy, but it needed to go with a different trainer, and so that's why I traded it away. I really wanted someone to use it, and I was really glad that Lionhugs actually managed to get a 6-0 with it after picking it up the week after they got it. So yeah, I didn't really use Radiance that much, and that's pretty much it for Volcarona. Swampert was useful in the battle I brought it to just because it was able to Stealth Rock and Yawn, but outside of that, it was just an awkward fit. It never really was a Pokemon that I felt like I needed on my team. If I needed to Stealth Rock, I could have just put it on Torkoal or Excadrill or even Mesprit. I don't think I did in the regular season, but it just wasn't really something I wanted to consider using. So I used it once and then decided I was going to trade it away. And that's pretty much exactly what I did. I did like Vehicle a lot. Vehicle, the name being like Swampert takes small Pokemon like Togedemaru, for example, on its back and walks around. So it's like a little vehicle for them to like, it's like their car. But yeah, Swampert wasn't really great for me. That's all I could really say about Vehicle. Beloved, the Mega Bayonet, was really fun. Although it's not a great Pokemon and I now understand why it's in Mega Tier 3, I did have fun with it. Which is more than I could say than Volcarona and Swampert, because I didn't really have fun with them. Mega Bayonet has so many support moves. It kind of suffers from 4 move slot syndrome because it wants to be able to run like Pain Split, Taunt, Destiny Bond, Will-O-Wisp, and an attacking move at the same time. But it can't. So I actually never ended up running Destiny Bond on Mega Bayonet. But Taunt was really good versus the Stolier teams. And overall, it was just an interesting Pokemon. I surprisingly used it more defensively, despite its not very good defensive stats. Just because its support move pool allowed it to be more defensive than offensive. So yeah, I had fun using it. I didn't necessarily want to trade it away. It was more that I wanted Mega Pidgeot more, not that I wanted to get rid of Mega Bayonet. So next is Abuelo, the Drampa. I was saving Abuelo for when I was going to use a Trick Room team, but it never happened. And yeah, that's why I never used Abuelo. It was just not really conducive for my weather teams. It was more like, if you're going to run Trick Room, I'm here, but otherwise I'm not. So my headcanon is just that Drampa was really tired because of its old age and decided to go sleep all the time. And that's what happened. But I kind of regret not using Drampa because it looks really fun to use. It has so many attacking options. And it's reasonably bulky. In Trick Room it could just do really well. But I just didn't use it, so... Next is Breezy. I did use Breezy quite a bit, and this was, again, the hardest trade for me to make because it was very useful to me in defogging, Will-O-Wisping, and pivoting. But at the end of the day, Breezy just doesn't hit that hard. Its hardest hitting move pretty much being Volt Switch. I mean, there's Thunder, but it's inaccurate, and Thunderbolt, but Volt Switch is pretty much what I ran most of the time. And Air Slash just isn't really a great move. At least not on Rotom Fan. And it helped Will-O-Wisp things and defog. That was pretty much its best quality. But I knew with how weak to rocks I was, it didn't make sense for me to keep Rotom Fan when I was doing my exchanges. So now we get into the non-exchanged Pokemon. This is Warmth the Torkoal. I brought it to every single match. This is my logo Pokemon, my baby. And most of the time I ran Drought, minus that battle versus Noob Scrub where I ran Shell Armor instead. And most of the time Heat Rock for maximum Sun turns. I did run those specs when I wanted to use Trick Room, and then Leftovers versus Noob Scrub. Overall, it really liked to yawn a lot, set up rocks, spin, try to fish for burns with Lava Plume. I don't think I got a single burn from Lava Plume though. And then sometimes I tried to hit hard, but overall, Torkoal's offensive stats are kind of underwhelming if you're not in a Trick Room. And even if you are in a Trick Room, unless you have Specs Eruption going, it still isn't great to sweep with. I wanted to try Shell Smash Torkoal so bad, but because so many teams are hyper offensive, a lot of teams had really great speed options, and even after a Shell Smash, Torkoal would be outsped by a lot of Pokemon. So I never ended up using it, but I wanted to so bad. Maybe in the future, who knows. Next was Aria the Latias. I really did not have a fun time using Latias in the regular season. I kind of just used it as a support Pokemon, because it could defog, it could Healing Wish, it could Trick and Tailwind. I guess its best time was tricking Wobbuffet, the Choice Scarf, but outside of that, it was really underwhelming. I had the Hotbound Berry on deck to try and counter Kingdra's Draco Meteor, but I didn't need it, and yeah, maybe if it had more usage in the battles that I didn't need it, I would have liked it more, but it just mostly died. So I didn't really like using it that much in the regular season. Everlast didn't get a lot of kills, but its main function was pretty much just setting up sand for Excadrill. And that's pretty much it. I didn't really bond with it that much in the regular season. Like, it was just kind of there. It did come in clutch versus Ember for Excadrill, but outside of that, it didn't really do much. It could never use its offensive presence versus Quasi because it fell asleep from Jigglypuff. And then in the battle with Ember is burned, so yeah, I kind of slept on Gigalith, or just didn't use it really well in the regular season, but in the playoffs it's definitely going to change. I didn't end up using Mega Pidgeot. It's funny that I didn't, but I just never found a space for it on a team. And just the fact that Megas can't hold items just bothers me a lot. I just like to be able to hold items, so yeah, I never really needed Mega Pidgeot, so that's pretty much that. Keyheart the Klefki was a really good Pokemon for me. It ran Spikes 100% of the time because it was just so good at stacking hazards when I needed them. And because I relied on Shiftry to sweep a lot, it doesn't have super good firepower on non-super effective moves. So I needed the Spikes to like get that final percent so that I could one-hit KO everything in the sun. Most of the time I ran Air Balloon on it because I just not want to take any Earthquakes, and I even supplemented that with Magnet Rise quite a few times because I was so anti-Earthquake. And just in general, it has a good support move. It was able to run screens sometimes, defog, like emergency defogger, and then even without investment, Play Rough hits relatively hard. So I did like using Klefki in the regular season, and I felt it was pretty useful. I was actually surprised I got some kills with it, and that it went even for a support Pokemon, because I was expecting it to go negative. Next is Mesprit, and I did like using Mesprit in the regular season. I mostly used it as a pivot or to Healing Wish things. I didn't really attack with it that much just because, I don't know, I just always wanted to pivot with it. Although it was very useful in taking down Mega Venusaur in the Noob Scrub fight. And I just think Mesprit's a pretty neat Pokemon. It's usually like the forgotten of the trio, I think. So it was nice to have some representation with it, and using it with a Choice Scarf is really fun because it's like slow but not that slow, and with a Scarf it could be pretty fast and pivot away when you need to. Full Bloom the Venusaur was a really fun Pokemon to use. A lot of the battles I brought it to, it just kind of took the back seat, but when it was able to sweep, it was so fun. And one of the things I liked most about Venusaur was that it could sweep, but it could also stall. Like in the battle versus Noob Scrub, I was able to stall using Roar and Leech Seed and Sleep Powder and stuff. Its move pool is really nice because I could go offensive with it, but I could also have some support moves. And because of Sun, I could have a really fast sleep powder when I need to. So overall, Venusaur was a really great Pokemon for me. I liked it a lot, and I enjoyed using it a lot. I liked to run Life Orb on it because unlike Shiftry, it does have some bulk to it. So usually I was able to find at least one Pokemon that I could set up on a growth. And Venusaur really appreciated that extra Life Orb damage output, especially on moves like Earthquake coming off of its weak physical attack. Roly the Togedemaru was awesome. I really liked using Roly. It only really had a huge role in the battle versus Quasimodo in the regular season, but it almost took down his entire team. Not entire team, but like his remaining team, which was 4 Pokemon. And yeah, I think it's slept on. It has Sturdy, which is an amazing ability. It has good stab, it could Nuzzle, it could U-turn, it could Magnet Rise to avoid Earthquake. And I put it on Air Balloon and then Bright Powder, which LOL. But yeah, overall I really liked using Roly, and I was excited to use it more in playoffs, which I did. Next is Amelie, the Excadrill, and I only used Amelie twice, but it only really shined or shone in the Emberhoof battle by clutching it out at the end and getting those 4 kills. In the other battle, I didn't really use it, but this is a standard bread and butter Earthquake, Iron Head, Swords Dance, and then either Rapid Spin or a Rock coverage move. I think Rock Tomb was to remove any Scarfs, like the speed boost from Scarfs, so that I would outspeed any problematic switch-ins. But yeah, I really enjoyed using Amelie, and I was really excited to use Sand more in playoffs as well. Willpower the Machamp was another awesome Pokemon. I wish Machamp got Drain Punch so bad, or at least Mach Punch. It doesn't, but it still is very bulky, especially with a vest. And the fact that it has Guts and can take a status and then just power itself up is really cool. I also love No Guard because I'm very hesitant to run Stone Edge on a lot of Pokemon, but because of No Guard, I could run it without any risk. And yeah, overall, Machamp gets a lot of nice moves. It gets Priority and Bullet Punch. Knockoff hits really hard, and I feel like I have options with Machamp. It could take a hit, it could give a hit. It's great in Trick Room, and I had a good time using it. It definitely came in clutch and was a good defensive and offensive mon many of the time. So yeah, definitely one of my stronger Pokemon in the regular season. Fire Pup, good old Fire Pup, definitely did me well. I ran a lot of different things on Fire Pup because the move pool for Arcanine is just so wide. It could go physical, it could go special. It's pretty fast, although agility definitely makes it really fast. And it's relatively bulky too. I liked all of Arcanine's abilities. Intimidate, Flashfire, and Justified are all useful in different scenarios. The most useful per battle I used it was definitely Justified versus Mega Sableye, but Intimidate and Flashfire were definitely really good too. The Z moves that I could use, Dragonium Z, Fightinium Z, and I considered Electrium Z, just allowed to use really high power moves that are good coverage without any of the negative drawbacks of said moves. And it's just extremely versatile. It has nice priority and extreme speed. Z Outrage hits really hard. Flare Blitz hits really hard. So I definitely enjoyed using Fire Pup. It definitely was one of those Pokemon that I felt like I could use in so many different ways. And then finally we have the notorious Ranger the Shiftry at plus 15, the MVP of the league. Focus Sash was really good on Shiftry because its defenses just kind of suck. So I always ran Focus Sash. I always wanted to make sure I could take at least one hit. And yeah, the widest move pool went to Shiftry for the regular season because Shiftry just has a lot of options in what it could run. And I could go physical, I could go special, and I could go mixed, and I've done all 3 of those. Mixed with growth, special with nasty plot, and physical with swords dance. I use the physical the most, but all 3 of them were really fun to use. And then its dark move pool is amazing with both knockoff, sucker punch, and also dark pulse. And then low kick came in clutch versus some of the steel type Pokemon and the rock type Pokemon that it couldn't take down otherwise. Sorry, not rock type, but steel type mostly. And dark type that it couldn't take down otherwise. And yeah, Shiftry was just awesome. Building my team around Shiftry was awesome. Sweeping with Shiftry was awesome. And I love Shiftry. Tier 5 does not mean bad. So yeah, Shiftry was one of my favorites to use in the regular season. I'm really glad I drafted it. So now we move on to the playoffs, and this was really hype. It was really fun. Overall, I like the format of the playoffs better than the first season because I only played 2 sets in the first season, and in this one I got to play 4 whole sets and had some close calls. So this is a look at the winners bracket. I faced Startoad, Morgana, Edgar, and then Startoad again, and this is the losers bracket, showcasing Startoad's epic losers run. This is how the team standings ended up being. I didn't end up losing a set, which was really a great feeling, but I did end up losing some individual matches. And so we'll go into my battle record, actually. I won 4-0 in playoffs, and I had an 8-2 score. 2 of the sets I ended up losing one of the matches, and I always lost the middle match. So yeah, I always went into game 3 off of a loss. And this is just the details of it. Definitely had a lot more closer matches than regular season. I had 4 matches that ended up in a +1 for me. 3 of those matches being versus Startoad. So Startoad was definitely a formidable opponent for me. I think in general, Startoad's team was actually the team that I wanted to face the least because I felt like it was the scariest matchup for my team out of all the playoffs teams. And it just so happened to be the team that I faced twice. So, funny how that works out. But yeah, it was a really good time. I liked playoffs a lot, actually, this season. I liked playoffs more than the regular season, actually. So, we'll start with winners quarterfinals. This was versus Startoad, Detroit Deinos. And in this one, we had both made some exchanges for our teams. And I was scared because, again, Heatran and Mamoswine were scary. Sand definitely helped my team a little bit more versus him. Oh, this is the wrong team. I just realized I didn't account for the exchanges on the left. Clown moment, but it's okay. So, Heatran and Mamoswine definitely scared me a lot, but I figured Sand would help me a lot. So I basically built 3 teams. I built a Sand team, I built a Sun team, and then I built a Fear Togedemaru team. So the purpose of the Sand team was basically to stack as many hazards as I can with Keyheart, set up Stealth Rock with Promise, and prevent Sticky Web from going up with Magic Coat. Use Togedemaru as probably a lead with Air Balloon, and then just create the perfect Goldilocks conditions for Amelie to come in and sweep. Keyheart had a Shed Shell because I thought Magneton would come and try to trap it. And yeah, so the first match went pretty well. Gigalith, Togedemaru, and Excadrill overall had a good matchup versus his team, I think. And Gigalith was able to do a lot of damage just because it resists a lot of Pokemon, like Crobat. And then it exploded on Salamence, I think. And then Togedemaru was able to do quite a bit too. So this battle went really well for me. I was becoming increasingly aware of Meowstic and its ability to set up screens and yawn and stuff. But I think my biggest fear was Mamoswine at this point. So I tried a Sun team. This time I brought Torkoal and Shiftry. I used Everlast the Gigalith to reset Sun turns with Sandstream, so that I could just come in with Torkoal again when I needed to. But honestly, I should have brought a different Sun Pokemon like Arcanine or Venusaur, because just having Shiftry, especially when I'm facing Crobat, is not really a smart move. And having Machamp with Life Orb meant that Assault Vest was gone and I couldn't be as bulky as I wanted. I also tried to run Trick Room to use Torkoal and Everlast and Machamp, but it just it was kind of a mess of a team. And in the end, he used Heatran to his advantage and Mamoswine in the sun. I almost could have swept with Shiftry. If I had one more turn of Reflect, I actually would have been able to set up a growth comfortably, but because I didn't and the Reflect ran out, I had to pretty much kill Mamoswine. If not, it would have Ice Sharded me, and then I couldn't take out Crobat. If I did have one more turn of Reflect, I could have maybe won this one, but relying on Shiftry was kind of tough because its matchup wasn't really that great versus this team. So I went into Game 3, and this team I made for him, but Fear Togedemaru in general was just something I've been considering for a while. And my plan was anytime I reached a Game 3, like the first time rather, I reached a Game 3, I was going to whip out Fear Togedemaru, so this was the time. And for this one, I decided to run Sand again because it was really useful versus his team. Fear Togedemaru in Sand especially is extremely scary. And then stacking Hazards with Keyheart, Willpower with Vest because that's a good item versus his team, and then Promise with Scarf just to kind of clean up if I needed to, or Healing Wish if I needed to, especially with Togedemaru. Like if I needed a Healing Wish, it would have helped me a lot. So Togedemaru definitely clinched this one. Mamoswine at one point was just wrecking my team, and the pressure was incredibly on because I had to use Togedemaru to take down Mamoswine, but I didn't restore enough HP from the Endeavor, and it was immune to Sandstorm, so I had to keep sacking my Pokemon, and then eventually I was able to take it down, but man, did it do a number on my team. And then finally with Togedemaru, I was able to clinch it. I used Spiky Shield versus Crobat to kill it, and then I killed Heatran with it. So yeah, that was a crazy set. The differential of this set in total was +1 in my favor, because +3, -3, and then +1. So yeah, that was a really scary set, but overall I really enjoyed it, and Sarto definitely showed a lot of improvement from the regular season. I wasn't rooting against Sarto, but I was just like, I hope I don't have to face him again later, but I will eventually, so we'll see that. But he did do an epic Lucius run, and I think he deserved it. So, winner's semifinals was versus Morgana's team, Northern Necrozmas, and he picked up one Pokemon that was devastating to me, Conquerors. I was like, oh my gosh, Conquerors hits hard, it's bulky, it could deal with my Sand Core, it invalidates Shiftry. Damn, this is going to be hard. So the first team I made was kind of like, I wanted to disrupt him as much as possible by kind of throwing all my archetypes together. So I brought Sun, Sand, and Trick Room to this. And the most valuable archetype definitely proved to be Trick Room. I wanted to be able to use Eruption, Torkoal, and Trick Room, but I couldn't, so I just went for the Flamethrower. But the star of this show was definitely Gigalith and Mesprit and Machamp. Those three did extremely well. So what happened was Machamp was able to take down two Pokemon in the beginning with Trick Room. He ended up taking out my Sun Core. Then my Sand Core was up to bat, but I knew in my heart that like Zeraora had a Choice Scarf, so I was like, damn, I can't face Zeraora with Excadrill and Sand because it outspeeds me. So I predicted the switch into... I predicted Close Combat and I switched into Mesprit. I set up one final Trick Room, and then under that Trick Room I was able to sweep with Machamp. There was one moment where Conqueror was out, and I faked out attacking it with Mesprit to set up Trick Room instead, and he switched out. That was a good bluff by me, because if he attacked Mesprit, I wouldn't have been able to do that final Trick Room, and that would have been fatal for me. But yeah, there was one moment that Conqueror took out Venusaur in one shot with Visod, and I was just like, oh, wow, this Pokemon is tough. So yeah, this battle was extremely fun and really hype. The second battle, I wanted to rely a little bit more on Sand. And I thought that Latias would actually be useful in this one, as well as Arcanine and Mesprit. I just did not want to deal with Conqueror, so I took 2 Psychic types and my Fairy. And for this one, pretty much a lot of my Pokemon were useful. Latias came in at the best time from Dragon Tail because it was able to take out Mega Garchomp and Mantine, I believe. And Mesprit did well. Everyone pretty much did well in this battle, and I was pretty pleased with the performance. I had Excadrill waiting in the wings, but I knew Zeraora was going to be a problem. And I knew that Latias was going to be good versus Zeraora, so that's also why I brought it. Because if it was Scarfed, it would be locked probably into move that wouldn't harm Latias that much. So that was a good choice by me, I think. But yeah, overall, this match was pretty good for me. And I ended up winning 2-0 and advancing onto the winners finals. This was versus Moondrinker's Edgar, which I was really excited to face. He had made some changes to his team as well. He put in Florges, Golduck, and Mienshao. And I think those were good changes for him to face my team. So I was kind of scared, but I realized that my Sand Core was actually pretty good versus his team. The one thing I was dreading, I was absolutely dreading Golduck, because whether it was a Swift Swim Rain Golduck or a Cloud 9 Golduck, it was going to be an absolute thorn in my side with how it dealt with my weather. Luckily he didn't bring it, but I was absolutely terrified of it. So the first match, I made a Sand Core team with Gigalith, Excadrill, and Togedemaru. And I also put in Willpower because I thought it was pretty good versus team bulky fighting. Fire Pup was to do an agility and then try to take down the rest of his team, and Promise was there to just generally hit everything hard. The Colbur Berry was for Bisharp. So, in this match, Arcanine, I thought Arcanine would have a bigger role, but Cofagrigus actually ended up trapping it with Mean Look and killing it, which really unexpected me. Which was really unexpected to me. But my Sand Core pretty much dealt with the team pretty well. I was able to set up Sand, explode with Gigalith, bring in Excadrill, and Florges was really good because Excadrill could pretty much come in on it for free. And so that was the Pokemon I was most comfortable against. In the second one, I changed a little bit of the team, but not a lot. All I pretty much did was take out Togedemaru and put in Venusaur, and then I think it changed a little EVs, but I had noticed that he had no grass types to block Sleep Powder and Leech Seed, so I thought that Venusaur defensive would be really good in this battle. But Cofagrigus did quite a number on me in this one. It doesn't show in the differential, but it set up Trick Room right off the bat, and then started ravaging my team because it nasty plotted. I switched to Venusaur to Sleep Powder, but I missed, so it just Shadow Balled Venusaur, Shadow Balled Machamp, and I think Shadow Balled Gigalith, and did massive damage to them and weakened them down. And then Garchomp with Outrage did a huge number on my team because it was banded, so it killed Mesprit in one shot. And then finally, I was set up to boost. Oh yeah, that was the thing I changed. I took out Close Combat on Arcanine for Wild Charge. I set up an agility and I took down Mienshao, and I was ready to take down Houndoom and Excelgor. But instead of close combat, I had Well Charge because I was so damn scared of that Golduck. So I couldn't take down Houndoom, and Houndoom took me down instead. So that ended up being the win for Edgar. And then in the final match, I decided that the Sleep Powder miss on Venusaur was just pretty devastating to me. So I equipped a Wide Lens on Venusaur because I was like, nah, I want Sleep Powder to hit, I want Sunny Day to hit, and I even put Sunny Day so that I could make sure that I was faster and put some of his Pokemon to sleep. I also took out Arcanine and put in Aria. I think I put in Aria with Trick and Choice Scarf so that I could trick Florges. Florges now had Hidden Power Fire or Ground to hit Amelie, so I knew it was going to be harder for Amelie, so instead of the sub leftover set, I ran Focus Sash instead for insurance. So in this one I did really well because I think Venusaur was able to just annoy things by setting everything to sleep and leech seeding things. And while that was happening and Venusaur was disrupting everything, other Pokemon were coming in and setting up spikes, reflects, getting kills. And so this was my best win of playoffs yet. I think having Sun 2 benefited Venusaur a lot because I was able to go first and pretty much Sleep Powder and Leech Seed everything. And unfortunately for Edgar, Ninetales Hypnosis missed a bit, which I think would have helped a lot, especially versus Excadrill, Gigalith. But yeah, this was a really comfortable win for me, and it was a really fun set overall. And we move into Grand Finals. This was versus Startoad, and I was kind of dreading this matchup again because I was like, oh god, Fear Togedemaru won't work again. He's definitely going to bring some ghosts. And I felt it was just the hardest matchup for me. But I decided to go in with a Sand team because Sand did me really well. And I also brought Togedemaru because I thought Togedemaru just did really well versus his team in general. I brought 2 Air Balloon Pokemon because Mamoswine was just terrifying to me. And this battle was really hype and really intense. What had happened was that he switched in some good Pokemon, like Araquanid was able to wall Excadrill, preventing it from sweeping completely. And Magneton came in on Klefki. I thought he wouldn't bring Magneton, so I didn't have Hidden Power Ground on Klefki. I was highly considering it, but then I was like, nah, he knows I'll bring Sun, so no. Magneton came in on Klefki, set up a substitute, and then went to town, and it took out Klefki, Gigalith, and damaged Excadrill really a lot, to the point where I died from my Life Orb Recoil after killing it. And it was all up to Togedemaru in the end. I had set up some hazards, and I was ripped and ready to go. He had Crobat, Pangoro, and Araquanid and Mamoswine. All really scary Pokemon, but because of the hazards and because of Togedemaru's nice attack stat, I actually ran Adamant because I knew that I could outspeed the Pokemon I needed to outspeed still with Adamant, which was namely Mamoswine. So I was able to take down the rest of the Pokemon with Togedemaru and narrowly avoid a loss, and I won 1-0. This was a really exciting match. One of my favorite matches in the league. My favorite match from playoffs. And then the second team I had, I felt kind of comfortable, honestly, exploring Sun versus him again, because the first time it really sucked. But the second time, this time, I was like, well, I'm 1-0. I'm on winner's bracket side, so I have a lot of wiggle room. And I want to stay true to my name, Sun and Friendly, and try a Sun team again. I beat him in regular season using my Sun team, so I wanted to try again. So I put in Venusaur and Arcanine this time. And I gave Venusaur a Yache Berry so it could live the Ice Shard from Mamoswine. And after Venusaur gets a growth boost, it takes down pretty much everything except Crobat. And Everlast had a Shuka Berry to take down Mamoswine with Superpower, but Mamoswine lived at 1% in the match. So my main priority was setting up Sun and Hazards, and then Sand was kind of like my second strategy, my cleaning strategy. And Arcanine was so useful for me because it could come in on Mamo's Earthquake, kill Mamo, it could also come in on Heatran with a balloon and not get hit by Earth Power. So Arcanine was a godsend in this matchup. What had happened with Arcanine in the end, Arcanine actually was doing really well, taking down Crobat. And he had Heatran and Doublade left. I couldn't use Flare Blitz comfortably because Heatran has Flash Fire. And I couldn't use Close Combat because Doublade could switch in. So I just went for the Wild Charge to do some chip damage to Doublade. And Heatran was also on a balloon. So it took me Torkoal to set up Sun, Venusaur to outspeed Heatran and pop the balloon in the Sun, and then finally Excadrill to finally take down Heatran. It took 3 Pokemon to take down that Heatran's balloon. It was pretty crazy. Another really hype match. I think I lived with like 9% with Amelie the Excadrill. And this is where I ended up winning the league because I got a 2-0 score versus Startoad. He put up a really good fight. And I won Victory Road Season 2, which was pretty awesome because I did not expect to win, to be honest. I kind of thought that the team I had was lacking in the beginning. Not in later, because later it became a little scarier. But yeah, I was pretty pleased to win, though. I was a lot more invested in playoffs than in the regular season, so I put my all in those last matches. And I was really glad I was able to do what I did. So we're going to take a look at the Pokemon again for playoffs. In playoffs, Excadrill was definitely my best Pokemon, with Togedemaru right behind at 11 and 9 respectively. Gigalith also was really good, going from negative in the regular season to positive in the playoffs. Machamp's still doing me well in Latias. Klefki and Torkoal were kind of more support Pokemon for me, so they didn't do that well. And my Sun Pokemon just didn't do as well as my Sand Pokemon in the playoffs, because I think Sand was just better in all the matchups I had. So if we take a look at the extended stats, the most useful Pokemon for me was definitely Togedemaru, giving me a plus 2.25 differential per battle. Togedemaru was just awesome. I had so much fun using it. I loved it. And then Excadrill was right behind. Not a lot of other Pokemon were super useful for me, but Gigalith definitely was for setting up Sand, Machamp, and Latias was generally useful, but I didn't bring it that much. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And let's go into the final Pokemon individual analysis. Klefki was mostly just a support Pokemon. It was trapped by Magneton one time. I used Hidden Power Ground, but not in that battle, which was dumb of me. But again, I mostly ran Air Balloon and Spikes. It was an emergency defogger. It set up screens when I needed it to, and had Thunder Wave. Overall, I feel like I used Klefki a little bit better in the regular season than in the playoffs, but it still was able to do its job in setting up spikes, and that's pretty much the most I could ask from it. Next was Warmth the Torkoal. Again, pretty bad differential, but I just needed it to set up Sun and Yawn things. And that's pretty much what it did. I tried to use it offensively again with Eruption, but it just never worked out. It's really hard to run Torkoal, because you just need like all those Goldilocks conditions to go your way, and they just didn't go Torkoal's way in the offensive department. But I was still really happy to use Torkoal a few times in playoffs. I definitely focused more on my Sand Core than on my Sun Core in playoffs, but I still use Sun quite a bit. Full Bloom did really well in playoffs, but it doesn't show in the differential. Versus Edgar, I think, is where Full Bloom shined the most, because the Sleep Powders and Leech Seeds were really, really valuable in extending the longevity of my Pokemon and disrupting his team. So I think Venusaur was kind of underrepresented in this differential, but still really fun to use. I used a variety of items on it, and generally used Chlorophyll because I wanted to go fast in the sun. Promise was definitely used a lot more in the playoffs than in the regular season, and I had a lot of fun using it. I just ran a bunch of different things on it. Generally, I just wanted to U-turn with it, but it was my premier Trick Room setter, and when I used Trick Room with it, generally it went in my favor. I definitely tried to use it a little bit more offensively too with Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Side Shock and Sidekick, but it didn't really fulfill an offensive role as much for me as much as a defensive role and a support role in setting up Trick Room. So I was really happy to have Mesprit overall because that was kind of like my Trick Room Pokemon, and Trick Room was very valuable for me in some of the matchups that I brought it. Fire Pup, another really awesome Pokemon, just so versatile in how I could use it. I narrowed down the scope of its moveset just because, like, I think that's just how playoffs goes because you're facing less people, so you're going to use the same moves a lot more because they're just better in certain matchups. But yeah, I like to run Agility a lot on Arcanine. It's generally bulky and able to fire off one Agility and then go for a sweep. And then Air Bloom was definitely the most valuable item for Arcanine, especially versus Startoad and Heatran. So I enjoyed using Arcanine a lot. It didn't have the best differential in the playoffs, but it was still a really good support Pokemon, and that was able to punch holes in some teams and generally be bulky. Once again, I did not use Gale, the Mega Pidgeot. Let it be known that I did have it reserved on the third team. Like, I built a third team for Startoad for Grand Finals, and I would have used it if we went to Battle 3, but I didn't, so it just never fit on the teams that I faced, so that's why I didn't use it. Ranger the Shiftry was another one that fell from grace from the regular season to the playoffs. It went 1-1, and I only used it once. The reason being is that the three matchups I had, generally I felt like Shiftry just wasn't good. Startoad had Crobat and Heatran and Mamoswine, which really Shiftry did not like. Edgar picked up Florges and Golduck, which could disrupt Shiftry with Cloud9, and I just felt like Shiftry would have a hard time breaking through Florges, so I didn't bring Shiftry there. And then Morgana had Conkeldurr. I could have run Hurricane, but it's very inaccurate, especially in Sun, and I didn't have Z privilege. I kind of wish I had Z Shiftry so I could run Z Hurricane or Z Icy Wind or Z Extrasensory and things like that. But unfortunately, I did not give Shiftry the Z Crystal, so I just kept using Focus Sash on Shiftry. So it's not that I didn't want to use Shiftry in playoffs, it's just that I had so much more favorable matchups for it in the regular season versus playoffs. Aria the Latias definitely did better in playoffs. I approached it more offensively, for sure, in playoffs than I did in the regular season. No more defogging, no more healing wishing. Well, I had one healing wish, but in general, I let Aria stand on her own, and generally she was more useful for me. Still not a Pokemon I like a lot. I think the typing is kind of awkward, to be honest, but the move pool is really nice, and so versus Morgana is when I think Latias was the most useful. Machamp, once again, being very useful for me in the playoffs. Of course, in Trick Room, it was able to do a lot of damage, and just generally, it's bulky. It's both of its abilities that I switched between are really good, and it has a really nice moveset. So I think Machamp had a good matchup versus pretty much everything in playoffs, and so that's why I used it so often. I used it 70% of the time, which is quite a bit of time to use. It's like 7 out of 10 matches, so definitely used it quite a bit. Everlast the Gigalith did me so well in playoffs. I used it 100% of the time. A big change from regular season. I always had Sandstream up. I didn't forget, like I did with Sandforce. And usually I wanted to run a Smooth Rock, but the other berries... Oh, I put Smooth Rock... It should say Smooth Rock 80%, I think. Or maybe I had a different move there. I don't know. But... yeah, the berries definitely came in clutch because I was able to survive a move and then hit back hard. Choppleberry especially versus Conk. Excuse me. But yeah, I actually ended up running Explosion most of the time on Everlast because it was such a good move because it could guarantee that not only a problem problem Pokemon would be taken down to red or taken out completely, but also that Excadrill could come in safely. So I mostly used it to set up sand for Excadrill, but using Stone Edge really helped. Earthquake, Superpower, Stealth Rock. I usually invested in attack, and it hits hard. Next is Rolly the Togedemaru, going at 10-1 for a tier 5. Especially Electric Rodent is very impressive, and I'm very proud of Togedemaru. I ran Air Balloon most of the time because I already had a Focus Sash pretty much with Sturdy, and Shell Bell was when I ran Fear. But Togedemaru was really good, especially versus Startoad's team. I think that's where I ran it most of the time. Only one time I ran it against Edgar. But yeah, it was a good pivot. It hit hard, it could flinch, it could paralyze. It's a really awesome Pokemon, and the typing is awesome. I definitely, like, the Pokemon that grew on me the most in this whole league was Togedemaru. I actually used to think Togedemaru, like, I was like, its design kind of sucks. I don't like it. But I actually love it now, and it's risen to one of my favorite Pokemon. So, thank you, Rolly the Togedemaru. I love you. And then finally we have Amelie the Excadrill, another Pokemon that I really came to love in this season. Just standard bread and butter, really, with Amelie. Always Earthquake, always Iron Head, always Swords Dance, and then the other move was just kind of circumstantial depending on the opponent. But I felt so strong when I had Excadrill. Like, it's just like, you're fast, you're strong, you have great Sab, you could Swords Dance. Like, Excadrill is such an amazing Pokemon, and this really opened my eyes to just how great Excadrill is. I like Excadrill a lot, and Amelie definitely was one of my favorite Pokemon to use in playoffs as well. So finally we have the Pokemon statistics combined. This is the regular season and the playoffs combined. So Shiftry and Excadrill being my two Weather Sweepers, Sun and Sand, both at plus 15 overall. Togedemaru at plus 12. Really impressive, again, for a tier 5 Electric Rodent. I love my tier 5s. Machamp and Arcanine being very useful for me as well. Gigalith coming up into the positive, Venusaur staying in the positive, and the rest of the Pokemon fulfilled more of a supportive role than an attacking role, so it makes sense that they wouldn't be in the positive. Overall, I think a lot of my Pokemon that I used did really well, and I had a slump in the middle with team building and how I felt about my team, but at the end, I actually felt really good, and I liked my team. So again, this is just the extended version, and the most useful Pokemon per battle, still Shiftry at plus 2.14, but Togedemaru right behind at plus 2 per battle combined, and then Excadrill in third place at plus 1.36. So yeah, Rolly, Rat, Shiftry, and Excadrill, my MVPs, but I enjoyed using all my Pokemon, and I liked my little community garden concept that I built with Sun and Friendly. And that was my team analysis. Lots of battles. I ended up doing 20 battles in total, 10 in the regular season and 10 in playoffs. So a lot longer than last season. And I had so much fun. Like I said, I had a slump in the middle, and generally I just don't think I'll use Weather or Hyper Offense again. But it was fun to try out, and I made the best of what I could, and I liked having a bunch of different archetypes that I could work with, like Sun, Sand, and Trick Room. And I'd say I learned a lot about my playstyle and what kind of Pokemon I like in the league and how to team build, and some of my losses taught me what I could do to make sure that I'm not just getting complacent or getting burnt out. So I'm going to team build accordingly next time for sure. One of my favorite moments in the league was definitely Togedemaru doing well. I think Togedemaru was just like my favorite Pokemon to use, even more than Shiftry. It was just great, like using a tier 5 that is just a cute little mouse, but it actually does really well. And just using low tier Pokemon in general I like a lot. It was a fun experiment to a lot of different archetypes, and I definitely like playoffs a lot. I think that format was great, double elimination with 8 people instead of single elimination with 6. It was a lot more hype. And I just like the community involvement a lot. I feel like everybody improved, everybody grew, the community grew, and it was really nice to see. It was a lot of work making this all come together, but I'm really glad I did, and I'm really glad the season went so successfully. So, yeah, thank you everybody so much for joining in and watching. I'm not gonna lie, like, there's a lot going on in my life, and like I kind of struggle with depression, but things like this where, I don't know, there's like an awesome community of friends and we're able to do this together and have fun and grow together, learn more about the metagame, use our favorite Pokemon, strategize more, become closer as friends, and just interact and create new things. It's really important to me, and it's really cool, and it kind of brings Sun into our lives. Haha, Sun and Friendly, get it? So I want to sincerely thank everybody for joining and participating and doing this with me, and validating this project of mine and allowing the community to grow. I'm really happy when I see people like improving and growing and becoming closer, and all the new people who joined too. So thank you everybody for making this such an enjoyable experience. I'm really happy to be the creator of Fun and Friendly and one of the community members alongside all of you. And yeah, I love you all. You're awesome. So this is a really fun season, and I'm really looking forward to Season 3 and what everyone's going to bring. It's going to be a stally season. I'm calling it now. Everybody got sick of Hyper Offense this season, so it's going to be a stally season, which I think it'll be really fun. So thank you everybody, and this was the Sun and Friendly team analysis. This concludes the video content for the Victory Road Draft League Season 2. So I hope you enjoyed the season, and please give me feedback as to how you thought the season was and what you'd like to see in the future. I really appreciate if you do. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm really grateful, and I'm happy I was able to win and do well with this team and see everybody improve. This is Noel from Sun and Friendly, and this is the end of Victory Road Season 2. Until next time with Season 3, I'll see you then. Goodbye.